How often, brothers and sisters, have we complained to God, to others, or at least to ourselves, that life is not fair, that God is not fair, that we do not get what we deserve and others don't seem to be getting what they deserve, and usually when we apply it to ourselves, we think we deserve better, and when we apply it to others, we usually think they deserve less. Jesus today addresses the fairness of God. And he understands that within each of us, there is this measure that seeks to judge, to weigh a situation, an event, or a person, and to come to what at least we think is a just conclusion. And he addresses that for us, and he says that he understands that we feel that we should love people who love us, that we should do good to people who do good for us. That sort of speaks to our sense of fair play, our sense of fairness, our sense of justice. But then Jesus turns that on its head and says, God is not like that at all. He says, if you think that is what God is like, then you are very, very mistaken. God is not about karma, that Hindu notion that we get what we deserve in this life. In fact, he says, God gives us what we do not deserve. If you want to be children of God, he says quite clearly, then you have to learn to live in another way that is not based on justice, but is based on love and mercy. What good is it, he says, if you only love those who love you? Anyone can do that. He says even sinners do that. What good is it if you do good to those who do good to you? That's really very basic. What good is it if you lend only when you hope to receive back? He says even the worst type of person has that kind of sense of justice. But God's justice, God's love, God's mercy is far above all that. Love your enemies, God tells you. Do good, lend, and expect nothing in return. And we have to step back and take that in for a moment, because that isn't fair. Why should we do good to those who will never do good to us? Why should we love those who do not love us, who hate us, who purposefully act to spite us, to insult us, who take from us, who steal from us, who don't give us what we need, what we deserve, what's owing to us? But Jesus tells us that is what God's love is like. And we do it because he has done it first to us. St. Paul tells us elsewhere in one of his epistles, for while we were yet enemies, God sent his Son for us, that he might die for us. While we hated God, God still loved us, and loved us enough to send his Son to die on the cross for us. To receive that love, to receive that gift, then we need to learn to love like God loves. And so our sense of justice and fair play now is transformed not into what have they done to me so that I can do the same back to them, but what would I have liked them to do to me or for me. Let's imagine that. What would we have liked people, or a person in particular, to have done for us? Let's do that in return. Because, Jesus tells us, God is kind to the ungrateful and to the selfish. And I suppose in our mind we could go through a list of people whom we consider ungrateful and selfish, but Jesus is not referring to any one of those people. He's actually referring to us, individually, personally. We are the ones, I am the one who is ungrateful and selfish, and yet God, in his love, has sent his Son to die for me so that I might live forever, and I, in return, out of whatever gratitude there is within me, seek to offer back to God a little of what he has given me. So God is not fair. And we must thank God every day that he is not fair. Because if he gave us what we deserved, none of us would be here. He, day by day, he gives us far above what we deserve. He pours out his love and his grace to us, even when at times he seems far away, even when life is difficult, even when things are hard. He never abandons us, but remains close to us and calls us to become like him in order to learn to know him and to love him through our neighbor. Amen.